Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I know that was a very long 2 minutes. I thank you for your patience. Welcome to this press conference of the Alliance for Change, today, November 15, 2024. With me today, I have to my extreme left, co-founder and the past leader of the Alliance for Change, Mr. Kemraj Ramjatan, Member of Parliament. And joining us online, we have Mark Goring from Region 10 and Colin Haynes from the USA. And then to my immediate left, I have the leader of the Alliance for Change, Mr. Nigel Hughes. And we will have opening statements from these gentlemen in that specific order. Mr. Kemraj Ramjatan, followed by Mr. Mark Goring, Colin Haynes, and then we will come to Mr. Nigel Hughes. Mr. Ramjatan, if you please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Beverly. I have a short press release on the Guyana Police Force. The AFC notes that this PPP government is on a path towards the covering up of the massive corruption of the Guyana Police Force. Predictably, its leaders are selling the falsity that the Guyana Police Force is substantially professional and largely that everything is hunky-dory, and that the opposition is only mischievously exaggerating events. The AFC, on the other hand, wishes to point out that there is a method to this madness of the PPP's approach, which is going on in the Guyana Police Force. The continuation of low salaries for our policemen in a time of major revenues from oil has a political logic about it and bears a relationship of the workings of the PPP's corruption. The police force is crucial to the regime's survival, and the Guyana Police Force's officers are charged with maintaining civil order. Civil order to be kept necessarily means preventing anti-government protest and oftentimes the persecuting of activists of the opposition. It also includes driving as much fear as possible so that criticism and dissent are neutralized. A police force will do these acts either through great commitment to the government or because it gets good compensation. The communist Leninist tradition of the PPP government informs it that though private rewards can be provided directly out of the treasury, which is a legitimate and right form for increased salaries, that should be done, the easiest way to compensate the police for their loyalty is to give certain favored officers and rank and file free rein to be corrupt. Pay them so little that they can't help but realize it is not only acceptable but necessary for them to be corrupt. Then they will be doubly beholden to the regime. First, they will be grateful for the wealth the regime lets them accumulate. Secondly, they will understand that if they waver in loyalty, they are at risk of losing their privileges and they will be prosecuted. That explains what is happening in this sordid Brutus debacle, he now being obviously the richest ever policeman in Guyana. A number of the officers who remain with integrity are shunned, fired, and persecuted, like the rank and file and officers at the credit union who were transferred by the commissioner immediately upon the exposure of this debacle. This method provides the means to ensure regime loyalty without having to pay good salaries, and it guarantees the means to ferret out any beneficiaries who fail to remain loyal. What could be better from a PPP's perspective? The AFC demands that pressure be put on the PPP administration by Guyanese and the diplomatic community to have a reputable international independent body investigate the Guyana Police Force. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ramkant. If I may ask Mr. Mark Goring to go ahead with his statement.
Hi, thank you, MP Alert. Good afternoon, member of the media, to their table. For a statement by Mark Goring, Regional Vice Chairman and Chairman of Alliance for Change Regional Management Committee, Region 10. As Regional Vice Chairman of Region 10, I'm compelled to address the troubling and prolonged delays by the Public Service Ministry in approving payments for 13 employees of the Regional Democratic Council in Region 10. These dedicated employees have served in various capacities for over a year without receiving their rightful salaries. This negligence is unacceptable and raises serious concern about the ministry's commitment to supporting Region 10 public servants. This situation is made more frustrating by the recent actions of the PSM in swiftly transferring the former Assistant Regional Executive Officer in Linden, following a letter issued to her by the Regional Executive Officer, allegedly as a disciplinary action. The REO notably had no authority to issue such a letter, yet the ministry acted on it without informing the council of any disciplinary grounds against the AREO. This double standard where critical staff in issue go unaddressed, yet punitive measures are prioritized, signals an alarming disregard for the operational needs of Region 10. Even more concerning is that prior to the AREO's transfer, the former Deputy Regional Executive Officer was promoted to Regional Executive Officer in another region, leaving the DRO position unfilled. To date, no replacement has been identified for either the DRO or AREO roles. Since the 9th Council inception in 2020, RDC Region 10 has faced a critical staffing shortage with a number of vacant positions. While a few vacancies have been addressed, the situation has worsened, particularly for the senior roles of the 4 most senior positions at RDC 10. Only the REO role is currently filled. There is no substantive DREO, and both AREO positions remain vacant. As a result, the Sub-Region 2 office in Kokwani has been without an AREO since 2022, creating a significant void in regional administration and essential support for that area. The disparity in treatment of the former AREO, the unresolved staffing issue raised serious questions about the PSM approach. Is the ministry acting under political influence rather than focusing on enhancing the efficiency and functionality of the public service to benefit the people of Region 10? The RDC called for immediate intervention by the relevant authority to address these concerns. We urge the ministry to resolve the backlog of unpaid salary for the affected employees, expedite the filling of vacant positions, and ensure that staffing decisions impacting Region 10 are conducted transparently with a commitment to improving services for all residents of Region 10. And point to note, these shortages of staff is causing a steady delay or leave students in Kokwani that traveling from Lauderdale and Huru stranded on numerous occasions. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good afternoon. I just want to respond to one of the articles on the government's website about government taking steps to prioritize mental health. This was dated November the 10th on the Department of Public Information website. I want to mention that since its inception in 2020, when the government has taken office, the plan was that they would move immediately or very swiftly to address the issues of mental health. We've been in a mental health epidemic for quite a while now. And I want to say it's welcoming that they're acknowledging the fact that this is actually an issue, because there was a statement was made by the former Minister of Health and health advisor last year at the Ghana Wellbeing Conference that there isn't a mental health problem, and that of itself raised a lot of eyebrows at that conference. At a well-being conference, the fact that you're saying that there isn't a mental health issue, and now you're actually accepting the fact that we do have a mental health issue in Guyana. I mean, the numbers don't lie. We're number 2 in the world for self-harm or suicide. We don't have data on depression, anxiety, hopelessness, trauma, or trauma-induced events as well. So the article also mentions that they welcome the act that was created, which is the Self-Harm Prevention Act of 2022. And I want to say as well that while the act decriminalizes self-harm, the very structures that this act was built upon is troubling because number one, before, as you guys the media would know, is that before you call 911 back in the days, you would get on to the police. And between 2020 and 2022, if you called 911 to get mental health services, somebody had a mental health crisis or yourself have a mental health crisis, you'd be calling the police. And there, the irony of it was that suicide at that time was not legal, and it was illegal. And so the same structure now today, you call the police, then they'll refer you to 914 for domestic violence or mental health hotline. And then there's been calls that says that hotline doesn't answer as much. There's still issues with that hotline. There's still issues with the national suicide hotline or the mental crisis hotlines they have. So the other thing I want to make note is that they have also released what's called the Mental Health Action Plan of 2024. And they have also stated that there's a commission that is supposed to be set up to carry out both the act and the National Action Plan. But there haven't been any report yet on what steps that they're taking to carry this out. So again, we're seeing from the government continually just a lot of hot air, a lot of talk, but not a lot of action, not a lot of steps, because as you know, you can easily come up with plans, but how these things are being carried out are more important. And the minister hasn't been forthwith in telling us how he intends to get these things done. Lastly, I want to say that the government doesn't seem to address the elephant in the room, which is stigma. We hear in the National Mental Health Plan that there are plans to expand services to link them with preventive care. But when people are not accessing these plans, these services, what is the way? How are we planning on doing it? Are we going to go with some of the best practices that is used in the Western world, which is when you come to get a health checkup or you get an hospitalization, they have a form that they give you. It's called the PHQ-2, the Patient Health Questionnaire 2, or the Patient Health Questionnaire 9, which is for more severe mental health cases. And so you use that as an opportunity to gauge the mental health, to see if the person is okay, ask leading questions. These are all things that are very common that can bridge and perform that link. And so I think today the essence here is that you have a government with a mental health crisis with a lot of plans, but no essential actions that have been taken. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now turn to the leader of the Alliance for Change, Mr. Nigel Hughes, who will be addressing a number of issues pertinent, of course. Mr. Hughes?
Sure. Good afternoon. Sorry. Let me just. Good afternoon, members of the press. I'm happy to start today's press conference with some breaking news. The Honorable Chief Justice has just awarded the sum of $1.2 million plus cost in the sum of $250,000 to Mr. David Patterson for the authorities wrongfully stopping him from leaving the country when he was going to meet the Congressional Committee and the Senate. You may recall some time ago when Mr. Patterson was at the airport, the immigration officers acting on instructions of their superior officers stopped Mr. Patterson after he had cleared immigration and customs, and he was not allowed to travel while the rest of the opposition team was allowed to travel. That decision was just delivered maybe about 10 minutes ago, so I'm very happy to share that with you. Those costs, I think, have to be paid sometime before the 15th or 16th of December. I want to start off by identifying, and we're going to be doing this every week, some of the pillars of the AFC's program for when it is elected to office, or if it's privileged enough to be elected to office. And one of those pillars, of course, is women development. Last year, Guyana signed the Women Empowerment Principles, and we intend to expand that and take that to the point of implementation. One of the features of that would be the establishment of a women's bank, and we believe that it is important that women are empowered because they will implement, they are essentially the backbone of the family. And so we want to not only bring into force microfinancing opportunities, but also training. And we're going to spend a lot of time on equity, diversity, and inclusiveness, and the development of the financial infrastructure and the training infrastructure for women in business. And that is every form of business, from the micro level all the way up to medium and large scale. We believe that we must have significant gender balancing so that we can keep those goals for 2020. Secondly, I want to address the issue of the census. It is completely unacceptable that we are now almost at the end of November and we still have not got any definitive word on the date for the release of the census. All this does is lead to unnecessary speculation and anxiety in relation to the population, the size of the population, the jobs that the population offers, and all the other essential bits and pieces of data that assist not only persons in determining exactly how many people they are in Guyana, but also assist those who are in business in relation to analysis and projections. And we would like to issue a very, very strong call that there be an immediate commitment that the census be released before the 30th of November, 2024. I think anything other than that is going to lead to unnecessary speculation, as it has already started in relation to the reason for the delay. We're already 2 years off, and speculation does nobody any good in Guyana. I want to also touch on the fact that you may recall during 2020, the chairman of GCOM, Madam Justice Claudette Singh, wrote to the Commissioner of Police about names that one of the political parties had provided to her of persons who were recorded as having voted at various polling stations, but were supposedly out of the country. She wrote to the Commissioner of Police, and the Commissioner of Police responded and provided her with the list of names of persons who were recorded as voting, but who had left Guyana and there was no record of their return. The reason we raise this is because we would like to know whether GCOM has specifically addressed the loophole that would have facilitated people who were not in the country being recorded as voting. Unless they have addressed this, this is another area for concern in relation to the operations of GCOM. And I just would like to take the opportunity to remind all of us that GCOM, not the political parties, GCOM is responsible for delivering a credible election to the people of Guyana. And they have been failing in this regard consistently. Almost every election there is an issue. As we're on GCOM, I'd like to talk a little bit also about the issue of biometrics. We understand that the Commission has had 2 meetings on biometrics, and it will meet again next week, Tuesday, on biometrics. And it is our hope that they appreciate the singular importance of the issue of biometrics, both at the time of registration, and we know that they already have, captured the fingerprints of all the registrants, but more importantly, the effective and efficient implementation of biometrics on the date of voting so that we can ensure that the persons who attend to vote are indeed the persons on the register. And that, of course, would go a substantial way in reducing the number of people who may attempt to vote more than once. And finally, on the issue of the event that the president had 2 days ago at 5:30. As far as we know, humiliation is not an effective management tool. Neither is it a basis upon which one can terminate contractual relations between any party. The event that the president had at 5:30 in the morning, which was broadcast clearly at his request, was nothing short of an admission by him of the failure of his administration to implement and appoint appropriately qualified contractors for the purposes of carrying out the government policies. One would have thought that in the structure of government, there were more than enough places and locations where, first of all, any infringements of the contracts would have been detected early. Two, there would have been the appropriate mechanism in place, not only to detect, but to issue the appropriate notices of default. And similarly, whatever measures were there, they would also be able to investigate whether or not they had been compliance with breaches of those notices. Any smooth, efficient, and responsible government would have several structures in place that monitor projects irrespective of their size to make sure that the people of Guyana get the quality of product that is being paid for. To summon ministers, permanent secretaries, contractors, and other persons at a mass gathering with the sole and express purpose of humiliating them, because not a single contract was examined in detail. There was no drill down as to the failure. And clearly, the only purpose of that meeting was to demonstrate to the citizenry that the president had the power to summon people at 5:30 in the morning, humiliate them in some sort of public relations attempt to enhance his standing when it was obvious that this was the ultimate admission of failure on his part to be able to deliver to the people the contracts which he said would be delivered. This is very reminiscent of Chairman Mao. Chairman Mao had started the name and shame campaign when he was chairman of the Chinese Communist Party in an attempt to humiliate people. We believe that this is an exercise that, well, I should say any public attempt to humiliate anyone is not acceptable. Humiliation is not a basis upon which the government or anyone should engage in for the purposes of attempting to either modify or rectify what is clearly inadequate performance. And we believe that those who are responsible and vested with the privilege of running a country like Guyana, that they would have the appropriate robust structures in place that will allow them to address any non-performance by any contractor. We do not support this kind of activity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings me to the end of my presentation today.
Thank you, Mr. Nigel Hughes, leader of the Alliance for Change. We have been joined online by the chairman of the party, Mr. David Patterson, now that he's out of court. David, is there anything that you'd like to say as an opening statement?
Good afternoon, Beverly. Not particularly, only just to bring an update that the case filed against the Attorney General in the state.
David, we reported.
Hello? You reported?
We reported
Yeah.
on your,
Yeah.
So we also said that you'll be buying drinks for the press as soon as you get the cost paid to you.
Oh, no doubt they'll appeal, Nigel, so we'll have to wait a while.
No, you still get your cost before the appeal. So Christmas drinks on you, David.
All right, there you go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions on matters raised or any other matter that you would like the Alliance for Change views on, or to clarify anything that was said here this morning?
Mr. Hughes, Dennis Chabral, the Arabians. Sir, can you tell us what is the latest with respect to the plans to file a court case to challenge
Dennis,
the,
can you?
the status of the voters list?
So, sorry, Mr. Chabral, I missed, I think it must have been the technical difficulties. I didn't hear the question, if you don't mind repeating.
Yes. Council, I'm asking what is the status of your plans to file court case with respect to the status of the voters list? I gather that at one of your outreaches in North America, this was announced as an option that you were exploring.
We are exploring. We don't have any immediate plans within the next fortnight to do that, I'm afraid.
Right. So so what exactly is it with respect to your analysis? Is it can you tell us where you are with that as far as your analysis of the grounds for a court case and what are the prospects?
Okay, perhaps I should clarify. Analysis has to do with the assessment we have of the data in relation to the list. We have received most of that analysis. I'm not going to share it here for obvious reasons. And when we've completed that analysis, that will then inform the nature of any legal proceedings that we are likely to bring. I think you are probably referring to a statement that was actually made by another lawyer other than me, but I am aware of that.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. I see a question from Kaichor News, and then we will go to Chronicle, Ms. Garnett. Kaichor News.
Good day, Renee Samach with Kaichor News. Mr. Hughes, the government has been hesitant to commit to a referendum on the 2016 Stable Block PSA, stating that such a move would be ineffective unless Exxon agrees to renegotiate the terms of the deal. As leader of the AFC and as a lawyer, do you believe that despite the terms of the agreement, a referendum should be held to get the public opinion?
I think you know by now that anything to do with oil and gas and production sharing agreements, Mr. Patterson, or if Dr. Adams is on, or Professor Shamir, those are the persons who specifically deal with oil and gas. So forgive me for not responding, but you don't mind if I pass that question to Mr. Patterson, who is the co-chair of our Oil and Gas Committee.
Hi, good afternoon, Tammy. I think we stated this before, that the question of a referendum, we would expect it to be broader than that, just not as a single issue, and obviously what the people want will be expressed there. But I hasten to say that the question of what is needed or what the public needs should be viewed in a wider context, in the sense that, that even if a referendum is passed, there's still some ways to go for it to be able to have a renegotiation. Obviously, it is a work in progress, and if a referendum is called for, not specifically at the same time as the election, well, actually, I wouldn't agree at the same time election. They're two separate issues. We would be supportive.
Let me add. This is Vince. This here is the epitome of foolishness and disingenuousness. This is the same Nandalal, along with his president and vice president, who were shouting from the rooftops that this contract, they will renegotiate this contract when they were in opposition. As a matter of fact, they said in Parliament, of all places, that the PNC Avenue had sold out the patrimony of this of the country. As a matter of fact, Mr. Jagdeo himself said that for every single discovery, people ought to be sad about it. And as soon as they get into office, they will renegotiate the contract. The president, when he got into office, we all remember that famous interview that he had with the critic. He said, yes, they will renegotiate this contract. So for Mr. Nandalal to come here and said, well, they've got to wait. No, you can't go and renegotiate this contract unless you get the approval of the contractor. Well, we all know that. Clause 32.1 says that. But the big question for the government is, have they ever asked or approached Exxon to renegotiate the contract? Exxon cannot go and agree to renegotiate the contract unless you ask them, which is why the clause is there. That is why the clause is there. So for him to come and say, well, it doesn't matter what we say or do now, didn't he know that? Didn't he, as the Attorney General and the Vice President and the President, they didn't know that when they were crying out and bashing the government for not going back and renegotiate the contract? It is the epitome of hypocrisy. And I'm really surprised that this guy who's supposed to be the top legal mind or the guy who leads the lead of the law in this country and doesn't even understand. Well, I know he has to understand. So it is a hypocrisy. So that's the question that should be asked. Didn't they know? Didn't they know that before now, or when they were shouting from the rooftop that they will renegotiate the contract? They didn't know that. They didn't know, but the clause started 2.1. That's the question I would ask them.
Thank you, Dr. Vincent Adams. We will now take a question from Ms. Garnett of Guyana Chronicle, followed by Mr. Adam Harris. Ms. Garnett, please go right ahead. Ms. Garnett?
Hi, good afternoon. Tamika Garnett from the Guyana Times. My question is to Mr. Goring. Can we get some more information on the 13 persons that were fired or not paid by the RDC? Were these new employees that never received their money, or was the continuing employees and something happened that stopped payment of their salaries?
Okay, thank you for your question. These were employments that were existing that the regional executive officer would have employed these persons to fill these critical services, primarily cleaners, coxswain, bowmen, etc., and was awaiting the approval of PSM. And after 1 year, that approval did not came, and the area had no other option but to ask the people to stay home while they wait on the salary. So that's my reason to addressing that issue. I think is on social media. I can send you the list of the 13 persons that were asked to stay home until further notice. That answers your question.
Thank you, Mark. My apologies to Ms. Garnett. Do you have a follow-up? Okay, well then we'll ask Mr. Adam Harris to go ahead. Mr. Harris?
Yes, sorry, thank you. Good afternoon, all. A question for Mr. Ramchatan, sir. You were looking at the Guyana Police Force and you talk about massive corruption. There was a Christmas presentation that the crime chief made some interesting statements. For example, one of the things he said is that during the tenure of the coalition with you as Home Affairs Minister, there were 1,569 robberies in 2015. Today, there's only 261. He goes on to talk about road deaths. A dramatic increase in road deaths in Guyana. Up to the 11th of November, there were only 98 for this year, when earlier the Home Affairs Minister had listed the number at 108. I know you don't keep records, but are you in a position to verify some of those figures that are presented to us, sir?
Well, the figures were all computed based on what I got from the then Commissioner of Police and his statistics bureau or unit, as they call it. And I can't, for my life, say that for a 1 year period, unless he's talking about the entire 5 year period, about robberies of various types coming into the thousands. But whatever it is, these statistics will be with the crime chief and his office. And I am taken by surprise that he is giving those statistics to show down the coalition when, quite frankly, almost every week I used to give the press the statistics as to how crime is being reduced and the professionalization we were trying to do with especially Mr. Russell Combe and Sitlington and so on. But that comes as a big surprise now, and I would like him to probably give, like what used to happen under my administration, the weekly statistics that you used to give to the president and also to the press, and he used to send to me. I don't think he was the crime chief then, but from the very beginning, it was some other people, but whosoever they were, the statistics are all there. Of course, statistics now, as I indicated in my press release just now, can all be corrupted by corrupt officers. And because they got their interest to serve and a whole lot of other things. But I'm rather taken aback by what the crime chief might be saying now.
Thank you, Mr. Raj. Mr. Harris, do you have a follow-up question?
Quick follow-up if possible. You also described Assistant Commissioner Brutus as the richest police officer in the force. I don't know what yardstick you used to arrive at that. Perhaps the amount of money he got, but we don't know if others have.
Well, that is quite true. That is quite true. That is based on what we now know that he has. I don't know if any other person has a higher amount. It could very well be.
All right. Now, what I want to know is that Brutus was supposed to be facing 240 charges. You're a lawyer, Mr. Hughes, a lawyer. 30 charges were read to him nearly a month ago. Why would you suggest is there this delay in reading the other 210 charges to him?
Precisely the very first sentence of my statement today. The AFC notes that the PPP government is on a path towards the covering up of the massive corruption in the Guyana police force. They have started the cover-up. 1 month has passed and they can't find the 41st charge after having found about 40 of them. It is a cover-up that is going on.
Thank you, Mr. Raj. If you want to add anything to that, Mr. Hughes?
Not really. I would just say that the practicality of prosecuting anything over 10, 15 charges, non-existent. When are you going to do 241 charges? It's like what's happening in the elections case. You want to bring a large number for PR purposes, but when are you going to prosecute that kind of number? I agree with Mr. Ramjitan. Clearly, this is some cover-up. But having committed to bringing 241, such a specific number, where are they? But the reality is, when do you seriously hope to prosecute them? That's another issue.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, any other questions? I don't see any other raised hands.
Oh, yes, Mr. Hughes, are you confident that that the court case will be filed in relation to the voters list or the National Register of Registrants? And secondly, how credible do you believe were those people by the Commissioner of Police concerning persons who were purportedly not in Guyana?
Sorry, Dennis, your second question you dropped. Can you repeat the second question?
I'm asking how confident are you that the information provided by the Commissioner of Police was accurate? That is information about the people who were purportedly not in Guyana at a time on the date of elections.
Dennis, I can't speak on the confidence. I don't have the information. I know that the commissioner wrote, Madam Justice Singh, who is the commissioner of GCOM, wrote to the commissioner of police, and the commissioner of police wrote back and provided names. I don't have a view on the credibility of what was provided because I don't have any information on it. What I do know is that's what the commissioner of police said at the time. My concern here is not to retry the election, but just to make sure that if the representations by the commissioner of police are accurate, then GCOM needs to have put in place, one, some sort of system to investigate how those persons were recorded as voting, and two, to satisfy any apprehensions the population may have that there may be a repeat that facilitated that again. So it's from that perspective, but I don't have the information. So the question of whether I have confidence or not in what was said, or whether it was accurate really would be by me at this point, beyond my capacity to comment, because I don't have that information. I'm only going on what the records show.
Dennis, you had a prior question?
Yes, I had a prior question. That is
with the elections.
Yes.
You're asking me when will we be filing it? Is that your question?
Are you certain that the case will be filed in respect to this?
Yeah, well, with any legal case, you have to examine the evidence you have before, the ability to present it successfully to the court, and assess what the potential outcomes are, both based on precedent, legal advice, research, as well as an experience. So I can't say to you that it's definitely going to go because we haven't got all that information before us at the moment. It's not that I'm trying to avoid it, but it's a prudent position, I believe.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz. Mr. Harris, you have another question?
Yes, nothing to do with the press statement, but something to do with Vice President Jagdeo yesterday saying that the first people to get this $100,000 gonna be pensioners, that's people like me, and public servants. Who determines what a pensioner is? And I'll tell you why. Old age pension begins at 65. NIS pension begins at 60. Public servants become pensioners at 55. Do you have an idea how we can deal with these pensioners and who they're going to be?
Mr. Harris, you sure that's the question you need to put to us or to the Vice President? We're not the people that made the statement. He said pensioners, and I suspect they should clarify this. One of the reasons that we say and continue to request that there is a statutory framework is to make sure that there is a certain definite framework that determines how payments are made. So I'm happy that you have provided information that there are 3 levels of pension in the country, but I'm sorry I can't assist you with a response to that.
The reason I ask you, sir, has to do with the fact that initially the political opposition, combined opposition, objected to the issue of a household. And then it came down to individuals. Now, these individuals are being further subdivided. So I thought from a political perspective, you would have been able to address the issue as it now stands, sir. Sorry. Give us fetch water.
Well, let me say this. We said it should go to an individual, and we said there should be a statutory framework. I'm assuming now that they're rolling out the program in the absence of a statutory framework, and they say they're starting with pensioners. So that doesn't mean that the rest of the population won't get based on what they said. But again, because there is no statutory framework, they can decide next week that, we're postponing the rest of the population until June or May, simply because there is no statutory framework for this. I'm assuming that some information will be provided, but politically it clearly just demonstrates again the lack of clear thinking on this issue. It is first you say household, overnight less than 24 hours you change it to individual. Now you've gone to pensioners. We don't know what sort of pensioners, whether you're talking about 55, 60, or 65, and it just demonstrates the complete lack of any thought, any planning, or any sort of serious attempt to address this issue, and really confirms what we thought it was, which is that this was just a PR exercise. And you can't run the government like how you run some sort of kindergarten school. You can't do this. All of this had to have been done long before. Your advisors ought to have put in place very specific rules so that when it is rolled out, you don't discover the kinks as you roll it out. All of this should have been done before. And this is just, again, unfortunately, another demonstration that those who are responsible for the management of national affairs clearly don't bring to bear any sort of serious consideration before they announce national measures.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, any other questions? I don't see any other hand raised. Then I take it there are no further questions for the AFC panel at this press conference. Let me thank Mark Goring, Colin Haynes, who joined us online, Kemraj Ramjatan, Member of Parliament, Leader of the Alliance for Change, Mr. Nigel Hughes, and especially you, ladies and gentlemen of the media, for joining us today. Do have a safe weekend, and thank you again.
But necessary